Hi, it's Marcy again. Hope you're all doing well. So as we move through this class, we will still spend some time trying to understand what underlies the field of bioethics. I personally think bioethics is a very interesting field since it is influenced by law, philosophy, and of course medicine and healthcare and medical technology. So we've discussed a little bit about the philosophical underpinnings, and today we're going to discuss the legal underpinnings in bioethics. We will do that by talking about constitutional law and how it impacts the field of bioethics. So constitutional law is actually a very broad construct that goes far beyond just the document of the Constitution. Constitutional law includes the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and other amendments, along with judicial interpretation by the U.S. Supreme Court and with other federal and state judges. The Bill of Rights, a well-known part of the Constitution, is just the name that we use for the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. As a group of amendments, they guarantee personal freedoms and were passed soon after the Constitution was ratified. Many delegates would not ratify the Constitution since it did not include anything about personal freedoms. As I mentioned, the U.S. constitutional law is dependent on judicial interpretation. You are probably familiar with the power of the Supreme Court and their ability to interpret the Constitution, its amendments, and other laws. Other federal judges and state judges also contribute to judicial interpretation. In order to interpret the Constitution, justices and judges look at the words of the Constitution and to previous decisions. Previous decisions are referred to as precedent. So this class is about bioethics. We're going to discuss the amendments that are often discussed within the field of bioethics. Those are the 1st, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 8th. And we're also going to discuss the 14th since it extends certain rights to the states and is part of the big picture. When you read these amendments as part of this week's assignment, think about how they might inform bioethical decision-making in the healthcare delivery system. So we're going to start with the First Amendment, and when you hear the words First Amendment, you may immediately think of freedom of speech, and this is the amendment you are probably most familiar with. But it may also include some rights that you did not realize that were part of it. It also includes freedom of religion, the right to be any religion, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, other religions, or no religion at all. It includes the freedom of association, the freedom to be a member of a group, the freedom of press, giving the press the right to publish articles about others as long as they are true, and the freedom of assembly, enabling us to join together to support or oppose a cause without fearing arrest. As a whole, the First Amendment relates to our individual rights to make decisions as individuals. The 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment are similar to the first in some ways in that they all promote a sense of personal autonomy and fairness under the law. The principle of equal treatment is promoted under the Constitution. The 4th and 6th focus on criminal law but have an application on bioethics. From a criminal standpoint, the 4th Amendment prohibits illegal searches and seizures, which means a person can refuse a search from a police unless they have a warrant or a reasonable cause to conduct a warrantless search. The constitutional concept underlying the 4th Amendment is personal autonomy, which we know is really important to bioethics, and the idea that a person should be free from another person making decisions on their behalf. The concept of personal autonomy underlies the field of bioethics, and we will continue to discuss personal autonomy throughout this course. Excuse me, I just had to take a break and drink something. The 6th Amendment focuses on criminal matters, on the issues of due process. We get our sense of what due process means from the 5th Amendment. The 5th Amendment says individuals are entitled to a sense of due process, meaning that we have to have laws that apply across the board in an equal and fundamentally fair way. For example, in a criminal context, under the 6th Amendment, if you are charged with a crime, you are innocent until proven guilty. You have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. You also have the right to a trial. And at the trial, you have a right to a jury. All these things that we think of as basic rights come from the Bill of Rights, and as a common theme to these rights is the right to autonomy, and this principle relates broadly to the field of bioethics. So that's why I wanted to introduce you to some of these amendments. The Eighth Amendment has an interesting place in bioethics since it has been used by some legal practitioners making bioethical arguments in support of equal treatment under the law. The Eighth Amendment applies to criminal procedures, particularly in the context of incarceration, and prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. It has been applied to health law decisions due to judicial interpretation, as opposed to strict interpretation, since it doesn't mention health care. It has been applied in health care to mean that prisoners should have access to medical care and treatment, because if you prohibited or you denied them treatment to medical care, that would be akin to cruel and unusual treatment. So that's an example of the language of a law might not mention healthcare, or bioethics, but through judicial interpretation, we've been able to connect them. So the 14th Amendment is a really significant amendment from a functional perspective. The first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, only apply to the federal government, meaning that the federal government cannot impinge on these personal freedoms. They don't apply to the state governments. So lawmakers realized they needed to pass the 14th Amendment to extend the protections of the first 10 amendments to United States citizens from not only the federal government but from their state governments. So we've spent some time reading about and trying to understand both the philosophical and legal underpinnings of bioethics the first few weeks of this class. Both of these ideas interact with each other and provide structure for decision making, for bioethical decision making. Even though decisions may be governed by philosophy, it's important to realize that the law creates practical restrictions, and the law helps provide choices and structure within our contemporary society. And law changes also. I mean, as you know, especially constitutional law, well, any law. So I want you to keep thinking about these through the semester. I know sometimes a class seems largely theoretical, but we're really trying to start to concentrate on some of the practical concepts of bioethics and how they will apply to your work. I look forward to your discussion this week and reading your answers to the questions. And I apologize, I have a cold, so my voice is a little bit stuffy this week. So I apologize if it's hard to understand some of what I say. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks for your time.